This is the Best in Society Summer White for 2014. It's the Tomich Hill Winemakers Reserve Chardonnay 2013. Now, the blending of this elegant, cool climate style was done by Randal Tomich, Ben Riggs, and our own Ian McKenzie, and our wine buyer here, Neil Haywood. It's a fantastic wine, and we're about to meet Randal Tomich. Randal Tomich, welcome to the Wine Society. It's terrific to have you here. We've come together today to talk about the Best in Society Summer White, which is always a Chardonnay, and this year you have made it. It's the Winemakers Reserve Chardonnay 2013. What I would love is for you to tell us about the region in which your vineyard is and why that is good for Chardonnay, and how you went around making this particular wine.
Well, my family's been farming for 3 generations. We've farmed from Mildura to Coonawarra to Clare, and my father's always been a lover of delicate aromatic whites. And about 15 years ago we moved up to the Adelaide Hills. Pristine country, beautiful water source, and really just a lovely spot.
And cool climate.
We're in one of the coolest parts of the hills, and the hills is quite a large region. So if you like, in the north's Barossa, and in the south is McLaren Vale, and the Adelaide Hills wine region actually runs from the foothills of the Barossa to the foothills of McLaren Vale. So we're pretty much dead smack in the middle of that, in the Woodside area, which is one of the coolest zones. So for slow ripening of fruit, you really need a lovely cool zone. So essentially the vines need to shut down every night, and the best wine growing regions are those which are warm in the day but very cool at night. We need somewhere under about 20 degrees at night every night for the vines to actually have a bit of a break. So this gives us a longer ripening period, which really retains the acid in the wine so beautifully. And the longer the ripening, the more elegant the fruit is, the more finesse it has, and the more flavour as well.
And they're more aromatic, isn't that correct?
Because it's all about flavour really, and aromatics.
Yeah.
The majority of what you see in the wine is really from the aromatics. So we farm about 300 acres of vineyard there. We're the largest grower in the district, and we've grown for Penfolds exclusively for well over a decade. And as our Penfolds contracts wound back towards the last few years, we're just concentrating more and more on our own wines. So the very best 25% of all of the fruit we produce goes in the Tomich Hill range.
Fantastic. Randal, why do you like Chardonnay as a grape varietal?
Well, for me, Chardonnay is one of my favourite grapes to grow, and it's really a passion which starts in the vineyard. And Chardonnay just kind of sits there. It's quite princely, actually, in the way it grows. It never overcrops. It's not like a sort of a unruly teenager like Pinot Gris or something like that. Chardonnay is really more graceful, and with our 27 different blocks, we've actually matched the terroirs to the different clones of Chardonnay. And in the majority of cases, it's worked quite well. We've balanced the actual vigour of the soil site to the actual Chardonnay varietal. So it's giving us beautiful balanced vines. Now they've got some age on them. They're about 12 or 13 years old now.
Gosh, yes.
The Chardonnay just settles beautifully. So the Chardonnay always produces a consistent crop. There's not actually a lot of hand sort of intervention or maintenance that actually happens with the Chardonnay. I think our region in the Adelaide Hills, there in that cool spot, is just really suited perfectly terroir to Chardonnay. And you know, we're amongst some of the great wineries of our area. We're actually next door to Shaw and Smith M3 Vineyard, which is iconic Australian Chardonnay. And then I work closely with the Bird and Ham boys just down the road. So when you really get the Chardonnay right, when the canopy and the leaf and everything's sitting just perfectly, you should see a little bit of dappled light just coming through. And the dappled light just really opens up the canopy, allows some beautiful airflow, and just allows the fruit to just ripen gracefully. Little sunburn, protection of the fruit is really, really critical in cool climate Chardonnay. And what we found with the new French clones, which we're using at Tomich over the American clones, is that with the old American clone, which came out in the 60s, you're really comparing sort of plant breeding or plant selective technology with a sort of 1960s car versus a 1990s car. And all of those finer elements are just there in the fruit, just through selective breeding. With my old American style Chardonnay, I'd get the canopy just right. I'd have a perfect growing season, and maybe 1 year in 3 or 1 year in 4 would actually get to the epitome of cool climate Chardonnay. The
You'd
white
achieve
stone
that,
fruit,
that's
pear,
the elegance.
the elegance, the subtlety. But with the French clone Chardonnay, the bunches are very tight and very, very small. And every year they throw to that beautiful pear, stone fruit, apple characters. So it's actually it's a pleasure to grow Chardonnay. And of course it goes in one of my other favourite wines, Champagne. So the majority of Australian Chardonnay, about 98%, is the old American clone. The I clone, which came out of Davis University in about 1963. So that clone is actually made for that American style. It's that fat, buttery, blousy sort of style
that we knew in the 80s.
That we loved in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then I think with the advent of Sauvignon Blanc and those cleaner sort of styles, they really kind of masked Chardonnay and brought it more into that unoaked, no malo, almost the Sauvignon Blanc of Chardonnays. But it's fabulous to see now that we're seeing a return back to a more delicate, I guess, style of oak Chardonnay. We're very fortunate through our vineyard plantings that we have some large areas of the French clones. So in about the year 98, 97, the Australian Vine Improvement Society imported a whole range of French clones from Dijon and from Burgundy.
Mm-hmm.
And these clones of Chardonnay hold oak in such a more elegant manner, and they just have so much more finer fruit flavours. So the actual wine which we've been commissioned to make by the Wine Society is actually a French clone Chardonnay.
So interesting. So it doesn't mask the fruit, it just enhances the fruit.
And it makes a more textural wine, and oak just really works with this wine in such a more delicate manner. So the oak really adds to the texture of the wine more so than just being sitting on top with the nose.
Creamy sort of rolling mouthfeel, is that what we're talking about?
It's all about softness. A
Yeah.
wine should be soft and a wine should be easy.
So and they're barriques.
Everything's done in French barrique.
French barrique.
So the fruit's hand-picked at dawn to retain the acid in the fruit.
Gosh.
And then rushed to the winery, and so it's only a couple of hours in between being picked and being into barrel. So and we do a number of different sort of ferments just to build some more complexity into the wine. There's a couple of wild ferment parcels and a couple in barrel, some in still, and the important thing is when you make a complex wine, just have a lot of different parcels that you've treated differently in the vineyard and in the winery, just so when you pull the blend together, the wine just really has all the bells and whistles, if you like.
It's great. So I did hear that when you came to blend this particular wine, you had Ben Riggs there and our Ian McKenzie and Neil Haywood, our trading manager, as well.
Indeed.
So it's a collaboration, was it?
So it certainly has been. We've drawn on some fantastic experience, and Neil's been really, really terrific through the whole process. So we've been making this wine really. We talked about it about this time last year before the fruit was picked.
Oh gosh.
So we actually targeted those parcels of fruit directly for this wine, made the little batches expressly for the style of wine that we were after, and then we started on the blending bench just looking at different styles of wine, I think back in June.
Oh, okay.
So we've been at the blending bench about 4 or 5 times and just finessed this wine little by little, a little bit more oak treatment here, a bit more freshness there, and it's really been a privilege to work with Ian McKenzie, I must say.
That's wonderful.
One of the
yes.
gems, and I only wish there was more of them still going.
Yeah. Well, give it time, we might find some more.
Indeed.
But look, I'm dying to taste this now. Can you take us through?
So it's lovely and fresh on the nose. There's some lovely bright apple
And
pear. And just with a spot of that sort of creamy nectarine, that
that's
white
nice.
stone fruit. So white stone fruit and pear is the epitome of cool climate Chardonnay. When you see pear and a little bit of stone fruit in it, you know there's something special. Nice and lean and crisp in the front of the palate, with a lovely richness. It's more textural. It just flows over the tongue and finishes nice and clean.
So clean and so long on the palate.
Still going now, actually. So with the oak in this wine, Ian McKenzie was very, very very, very keen to keep the wine in that sort of new age Chardonnay
Sure.
sort of style. So the oak's actually quite seamless, isn't it? It just kind of blends in. It's not standing on top, but it's adding this beautiful richness to the back palate.
There's actually a great balance to all components. There's no one thing sort of jutting out, which is great.
And we've ready bottled this wine, so it's important for all wines to sit in bottle for 3 or 4 months before they're released.
So this is only really newly bottled.
It's only freshly bottled about 3 weeks ago. But the wine's really standing up. But the important thing for the members was to get the wine in bottles soon enough so that once they actually see the wine in early February, that the wine's ready to drink.
Fantastic. And tell me, what will cellaring do to this wine, Randal?
Well, in my experience from the other reserve wines in this range, cellaring of 3 to 4 years will really enhance the wine. The oak will start to lift in the back palate. There's plenty of acid in it. This wine will last for 10 years or at least.
Yeah, a lot of longevity. On the Best in Society program, it's usually a case that they buy, and they will put some down, try one and then cellar them.
But I haven't seen this wine for a month or so, of course, since it's been in bottle. And I'm really, really pleasantly surprised. The wine's lovely, and it just keeps us going back for glass after glass.
It's absolutely delightful. Randal, it has been a pleasure to have you here to take us through this fantastic wine. And I hope you come back many more times with other wines, so thank you so much.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and with all things Tomich, we like to finish with a toast. So, in the festive season, may your only pain be champagne.
This fantastic Chardonnay is exclusively available to Wine Society members. However, if you become a subscriber to the Best in Society program, the price is heavily reduced for you. If you'd like to find out more about that, give us a call. It's 1300 723 723. We look forward to hearing from you. Cheers.